What is up, guys? Welcome on into Pickswise Playbook Week 10 edition presented by Superbook Sports. Lauren Jabari here with Jared Smith, Tank Williams, my two favorite men, guys. We are here and we are halfway through
Aw.
the NFL season at this point. It's
All
pretty
lies.
crazy.
We know
Tank,
it's
how
a
are you
lie.
doing?
Yeah, it's definitely a
I
lie
mean, I
on
was
my
doing
end.
good until you just start off to throw out that
You're my
lie. I mean,
favorite
come on, man. You
people.
gotta keep it 100 with the viewers. We know. I mean, we know you enjoy our company, but we're not your two favorite men. Come
I'm
on.
on the second tier,
Top
Tank.
five.
Every
Top
time
five.
Lauren and I do a show together, the ranking drops and drops and drops and drops and drops. It's like an hourglass
Well,
with
you
sand
know,
going through it.
you guys are my two favorite guys in this moment on the show. How about that?
Oh,
We'll
well, now
get
you're
that's
going to
we'll
play
keep it
off
above.
Kyle like that. What about Kyle?
Tank, we're halfway through the NFL football season. It's pretty crazy. Just your reaction so far, 9 weeks in, heading into week 10. We got 9 more weeks to go.
The Green Bay Packers. I mean, that's one of those
Mm.
things where you almost end last season on the highest high you have. I mean, obviously they didn't make it to
Mm-hmm.
the Super Bowl and win the championship, but you have Aaron Rodgers win another MVP, and even though he lost Devontae Adams, you feel like because Aaron Rodgers is that dude, somehow, some way, they're going to will themselves to another NFC division, NFC North division title, and all that sort. And then they're on a 5-game losing streak. Like it gets real quick in the NFL, and so interested to see how they're going to try to bounce back yet again in a tough week against the Dallas Cowboys, which we're going to cover here shortly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he has to go up against that dude now in Micah Parsons. You want to know who else was that dude back in 2001? Was Tank Williams. When he won the first team, All-American. So just had to throw
Let
that
them
in
know.
there. Jared.
Let him know.
Tell us, say a lot of people in the back. Jared, coming to you now. 9 weeks in, 9 more weeks to go. Your biggest surprise now through 9 weeks.
I would say margin, scoring margin. That's been the thing that has stood out to me the most. So, average final score margin so far this season, 9.43. That's the lowest through 9 weeks since the merger. 72 games have been decided by a touchdown or less. That's the most through 9 weeks in NFL history. And we talked about this last week and in prior weeks. Favorites of 7 or more are really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
11 and 20 against the spread. That is a negative 31% ROI if you just blindly bet every favorite of a touchdown or more this season. That trend has not finished lower than 19% ROI in any season since 2003, which is when the database that I use go back. So it's been a tough year for favorites, and it's been a tough year for teams that are expected to win. Parity, certainly the name of the game in the NFL right now.
I feel like we
Yeah,
talked about the
parody.
Green
One of
Bay
those.
Packers that entire lead up.
Yeah, pretty much.
Literally.
Yeah. A lot of 7-point
know.
favorites for the Packers have gone down in flames this year. I can think of a couple against the
Yes.
Jets and the Giants. Lions, maybe.
Dumpster
No, that was a
fire
lower
up there at Lambeau and there with the Green Bay Packers. You talk about the parity, though, and I think one of my biggest surprises is the New York Jets, especially after losing Breece Hall, still beating the Buffalo Bills in Week 9. Their defense, guys, is the real deal. They were 10.5-point underdogs heading into their game against the Bills. I feel like we all thought that they were going to lose. Everybody thought that they was going to lose. Their defense, though, legit. And their rookie cornerback in Sauce Gardner, he's feeling saucy, leads the league, leads the NFL in passes defended with 13. Quinnen Williams tied for the lead in the league in sacks by defensive tackles with 7. They put so much pressure on Josh Allen and held him to a season-low passing yards, 205. He wasn't able to throw for a touchdown for the first time all season, threw 2 interceptions, sacked a season-high 5 times. And I didn't even mention Zach Wilson. It has nothing to do with their offense at this point. It is all about the Jets defense. They're 6-3 through 9 weeks, and they deserve to be. I feel like we all thought Breece Hall, bye. They're done for the season, and they come back and beat the best team in the National Football League in the Buffalo Bills. Let me tell you, I would not want to be the team going up against Buffalo this week, and we're going to break that game down in a little bit. Before we get into Week 10 key matchups, let's talk about some NFL season betting stats halfway through the season. The unders, 79-54, about 60% this season.
Wow.
The unders are hitting. Best against the spread teams, Titans are 6-2, Giants are 6-2, Cowboys are 6-2, and only 8 teams in the whole league have above a 500 record against unders, which is pretty crazy. So if you're a fan of the under, Sweats, trends are favoring you here, and maybe take a couple unders this week heading into week 10. Let's kick it off, first of all, with the Seahawks taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. NFL making its German debut, Das Boot. And hopefully a change of scenery will be pretty good for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here, because they narrowly got a win last week against the Super Bowl champions in the Rams. In the last minute of the game, Tom Brady did what Tom Brady does best. And they're going up against the Seahawks, who right now are one of the hottest teams in the NFL. 4-game winning streak after an incredible win against the Cardinals. Tank, I'll come to you first. The Bucs here laying 2.5 points, which is a little confusing to me because of how hot the Seahawks have been. Do the Bucs cover the spread in Munich? Do they get that Das Boot, drink some beer, and get the win?
Yeah, that's interesting. The Bucks being the favorite in this game, even though they're playing over in Germany, and I guess they're the home team.
Yeah.
But I think the one thing that is hard to determine is if this is the bottom for the Bucks. Like, you follow a lot of markets, whether you're talking about the stock market or anything else, and like a lot of times when you're free falling, you have to set a bottom. And so was the bottom this win against the Rams? That's what I'm not exactly sure, because if it is, they could get a nice little bounce. They get a little momentum. They get some confidence. And if you can get another huge win against a really good team like the Seattle Seahawks, and then you get a bye after that, and then, you start to feel good about yourself, given that you're already tied for the NFC South title, even though you played really, really poorly to start the season. That being said, Seattle just keeps winning. They pull off a win against a divisional rival against Arizona Cardinals a couple of weeks ago. Then they go down in their house when everyone expects the Arizona Cardinals to be able to kind of even it up, because that's what divisional teams do. And yet and still the Seattle Seahawks find a way to come out with a win. They continue to run the ball effectively. Geno continues to make really smart decisions in the pass game, and their playmakers step up consistently, and it allows them to win games. And so I really don't have a strong lean either way in this game, as far as honestly, if you want to lean one way or another on the total, I would probably say under, because I would expect the Tampa Bay defense to continue to improve, and I expect Seattle's defense to continue doing what they're doing. But as far as who's going to actually win the game, no clue. I think it'll be a good one, though.
Jared, the good news for Tom Brady is he absolutely loves playing overseas. He's a perfect 3-0 outside the US of A, 10 touchdowns, and averaging about 320 passing yards per game overseas. It makes me a little nervous that Seattle's giving up the 12th most passing yards. Knowing that, do the Bucs cover the just under a field goal spread?
Yeah, this is an interesting number for sure. Tank nailed it. The buy low element here, and we came out with our early birds column Sunday night, and one of the buy low candidate was this game, because over the summer the Bucs opened at -9. Now a lot's changed since the summer, but last week this line was 2, reopened 1, and now we've seen it kind of kiss up against that key number of 3. We're recording this here on Wednesday morning. I'm seeing a lot of 3s in the market. Actually, it's all 3 across the board. So, yeah, the early money has certainly come in on Tampa Bay at that bottom feeder mark. Now back up to where I would call it a fair number, Tampa Bay -3. I don't really have a vibe spread-wise here. I think Seattle's shown me that their game and their defense is top 15 in schedule-adjusted efficiency. That was supposed to be the weak link. Geno was also supposed to be the weak link, but I think we can kiss that narrative long gone. Geno's playing at a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. So the idea that he's just going to fall off of a cliff and revert back to the 2015, 2014 Geno Smith, I think we could totally get rid of that narrative from everyone's brain. That's not happening. Is it fair to say that his efficiency has peaked and we're going to see some regression from just the insane level of play that he's been putting out there? Sure, I think that's fair. But he also has the offensive rookie of the year in the backfield and 2 all-pro receivers and an offensive line that's top 5 in pass block win rate. So the pieces around him are playing pretty well. Now, there's an interesting wrinkle to this game. Tank, you might be able to offer some more, insight here. Todd Bowles has a very, very intimate relationship with Geno Smith. Not intimate, romantic, but he was part of that. Let's stop, because the trolls will get me for that.
We definitely have to clarify. I feel you, but.
But my point being, the end of Geno's tenure with the Jets was very rocky. it was a very difficult end of Geno's tenure. Ryan Fitzpatrick came in, he lost his job, et cetera, et cetera. Todd Bowles was the head coach of the Jets during all of those, behind the scenes workings for the last 2 years of Geno's tenure with the Jets. So there's an interesting little backstory here between those two guys. And, a lot of people are questioning Todd Bowles' first season as head coach. But listen, this Bucs offense looks terrible right now. So it's hard to just say, hey, yeah, they're back. They had one good drive against the Rams and they're back. I think this is going to be a nip and tuck game. I think the line is fair at 3, and I agree with Tank's take. Slight lean to the under, of course, 44, the most landed on total in the NFL over the last 5 years. So under 44.5, you're getting a little bit of line value there. So that's really my only take on this game. I was going to write up the Bucs for the site and bet pretty hard, but now that the line's at 3, I just don't feel as confident about it. And it's really tough to fade the Seattle Seahawks right now. They're a really tough team.
They are 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games. And to your point, Jared, I feel like this whole season we've been waiting for the Bucs to do something. Similarly to the whole season, we've been waiting for the Seahawks to, I guess, regress a little bit. But through 9 weeks, we're halfway through the season, we're seeing the trends of what these teams actually are. And I think that that's going to continue moving forward. Let's move on to Buffalo. The Vikings in town to take on the Buffalo Bills. And a few days ago, I would say I would not want to be the Vikings this week going up against an angry Buffalo Bills team coming off the loss against the Jets or an angry Josh Allen. But at this point, we don't even know if Josh Allen is going to be playing. And because of that, the spread has moved from the Bills laying 7. Now the Bills are laying 4 points. The Vikings, though, have the second best record in the NFC. It's 7-1. They beat the Commanders last week. Josh Allen didn't have the best game. I know he has his UCL that he's dealing with here, Tank. Do you think he will play this week? And if you don't, would you still feel comfortable laying the points with the Bills?
See, that's interesting. I mean, I kept peeking over my shoulder because I saw Sean McDermott on the TV as you were talking. All the news that I've heard so far today is that he wasn't going to practice today. I've heard some other quarterbacks talk about that injury and say that they would prefer to have something going on with the rotator cuff other than that UCL that Josh Allen is dealing with. Yeah, at the same time, at the end of that game, after he had already injured his arm, I'm not sure if it's adrenaline or what. I think he threw the longest pass in the NFL this year to Gabe Davis, even though the pass fell incomplete. That shows you what kind of damn freak this dude is. So with that being said, would I be willing to lay the points on Buffalo, seeing how Green Bay was able to play them tough a couple weeks ago, seeing how the New York Jets were able to beat them? Obviously, they played in New Jersey. No, I wouldn't feel comfortable. The Vikings are playing really good football right now, and I believe they have one of the better running backs in the league. If they can lean on him and get some semblance of that run game going, like how we've seen over the past couple of weeks, and I think the Vikings should be okay. Dalvin Cook is that dude. I think Kirk Cousins has enough weapons on the outside to be able to keep that defense honest, so they just can't focus up on one aspect of that offense. So as I have in my notes, I think for me, it's too really early to really determine a side on this one, just because there's too much variance right now. We don't know what's going to happen with Josh Allen, and he's the key to the puzzle. So I would say this is kind of like a wait and see approach. If this is a game that you really want to bet, you just kind of wait and see which way the information on Josh is trending. And if you have a strong feeling one way or another based on if he's going to play or not, then you take that side. But as far as right now, I think everyone's in limbo.
Yeah, this is one of those games that's really difficult to handicap at this point because you look at the Bills, they haven't lost yet on home turf this season. They haven't lost at home since December 6th of 2021. But the Vikings, you look at their offense too, their point total drops from about 24 to about 20 points per game on the road. So it's so hard to handicap this game, Jared, going into it, just not knowing the Josh Allen news because a lot of this is contingent on if he's starting under center or not, right?
Yeah. The market's telling you that he's not going to play. That's good luck trying to figure out what's really going on there. And when it's an injury to, a random player that's not an MVP candidate, it maybe won't impact the market as much, but there's a lot of people out there that are probably holding Vikings tickets that want to bet the Bills now. So you're going to get a lot of anytime a line moves this much midweek, the smart money will play both sides very effectively. So you'll start to see probably a little bit of buyback at some point, but I don't think we're going to see any definitive market direction until we really know what's happening with Josh Allen. And I don't think we're going to know until probably Friday at the earliest, maybe not till Sunday game time. That being said, let's zoom out just a hair and let's talk about the Bills as a team, because Josh Allen was healthy for most of that game against the Jets, and they made him look really bad. He graded out as a bottom 5 quarterback last week. And I know not every team in the NFL has a Sauce Gardner or a big Q in the middle or a really great defensive-minded head coach in Robert Saleh, but what we saw the Jets defense do is run the Patrick Mahomes game plan, where they dropped everyone back and they said, go ahead, beat us running the ball, but you're not going to beat us over the top with Stephon Diggs. And it worked to perfection. Josh Allen got a little flustered, got a little frustrated, which is what we saw Patrick Mahomes do in the early stages of that cover 2 renovation, when teams just started dropping everyone back and say, Patrick, go ahead, beat us with an 11, 12 play drive down the field. So I'm curious to see going forward, big picture, this game aside, how teams adjust to Josh Allen and this offense. Now, on the other side, you can make a case that the Vikings are very, very fortunate to not only win against Washington last week, but be in the position that they are with their win-loss record. That game was done and dusted. Down 10 fourth quarter, and then Taylor Heineke decided to give it back. So there's vibes on both sides here that make me want to stay away. So this game, I could not want to bet. Of all the games on the board this week, this might be the one that I want to bet the least.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I feel like if I had to bet this game, like truly if someone's forcing me to, the under would be the best bet here. That total right now is at 44.5. But I said the Vikings points per game total drops from around 24 to around 20 points per game on the road. And if there's no Josh Allen on the Bills side, I don't think they're going to be scoring very many points too. And the under is 6-0 in the last 6 Bills games. So that's with Josh Allen. So definitely a good look to look at the total, possibly the under here, especially with the under hitting at about a 60% rate this season. Broncos, Titans, let's take it to Nashville, Smashville. Titans laying 3 points here in this game. That total pretty low, set at 39.5. AFC matchup with the Denver Broncos coming off of a bye. The last time that they played, they were stinking it up in the first half and somehow ended up winning in London against the Jags. I don't know how, I don't know when, I don't know why, but they pulled off that win. Now the Titans, they're coming off of a huge loss in overtime against the Chiefs. They almost had that game. I feel like the Titans are going to come into this game with an absolute vengeance, right? They were like this close, Tank, to beating the Kansas City Chiefs, who are one of the top 2 teams in the AFC, and the Titans wanted to be up there with them as well. As a former player, when you lose a game like that to a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, how much more intense do you come out that next game? And would you feel comfortable laying the 3 points with them at home?
Man, there's a lot to get into with this game, because I almost felt like it was necessary for me to like rock my Titans gear, because I felt bad for doubting them. You remember we led that segment last week talking about that's way too many points, and it was way too many points. The Titans were impressive. The Titans were impressive on Sunday Night Football for a couple reasons. I felt this season that there's no way that they should be able to compete with some of the more dominant teams in the AFC, because there's no existence of a passing game whatsoever. Like, they don't have a thimble of a pass game. Yet still, they just stubbornly run the ball down other teams' throats, and they just have to take it because they're just that damn good. King Henry and that offensive line is just that damn good. And so when you play against a team like the Kansas City Chiefs and you push them to the limits like that, you come away with a loss, and then you have an opportunity to go home and totally redeem yourself against a team like the Denver Broncos, where they were across the pond. All the hell that they were catching on the way there, Russell doing his high knees and everything else, somehow, some way, they're able to pull off that win. They fly back. They're on the bye week. They're feeling good about themselves because they finally got a dub. And now you have to go to Nashville and play a pissed-off Tennessee team that can run the ball on anybody in the league. I don't care who it is. And at the same time, you have a defense that's now pissed off, and that they're going to pin their ears back and say that what you saw against the Kansas City Chiefs, oh yeah, we can definitely replicate that against Russell Wilson and that Denver offense. So if there's any lean for me in this game, I feel like the Titans -3, I mean, feels pretty good. I think the under at 39 feels pretty good. I feel like Nashville is going to be rocking. They're going to be having their chops licked, smothered, covered in chunk like you at the Waffle House at 4 a.m, and it's going to go down in the Ville.
That's
Nashville is getting
right
going
there.
on. Oh my God, I love that. Licking their chops like they're at Waffle House at 4 a.m. I have been there before, Tank, and I
I've
know
been there
exactly
too.
what you're talking about. I feel like this spread, though, I honestly, 3 seemed low to me. Like, I think it's 2.5 now. I feel like it should have been 4 or 5 with the way that the Broncos are going to have a really hard time stopping a guy like Derrick Henry, who is playing like that dude, because they are giving up the 13th most rushing yards on the road in the NFL. Jared, do you feel comfortable with the Titans coming out, getting the win here, and covering the 3-point spread?
I think it actually could continue to move in favor of the Titans this week if we get word that our pal Ryan Tannehill is back in the saddle, which I think it's trending in that direction. But again, what have we discussed with quarterback injuries? Not something that I'm willing to bet my money on a Wednesday. We'll see on a Friday if the news with Ryan Tannehill is better. He was close to playing last week. I think it actually worked out for the best because it turned Tennessee into a very conservative offense, and it really put the onus on the defense. And the defense for the Titans, man, Mike Vrabel does not get enough credit. Honestly, I think every year he is one of those guys that is just overlooked because he's not a very flashy head coach. He makes some interesting decisions on 4th down, some 2-point conversions. He can be a little too aggressive, I think, at times for some people. But when you look at the guts of this Titans team, since they got blasted by the Bills in week 2, they are a top 5 defense. I mean, they're as good as it gets right now, and they have not allowed a team in regulation. The Chiefs got to 20 in overtime. They haven't allowed a team in regulation to get past the teens since a 24-22 game against the Raiders all the way back. I think it was week 3 or week 4. So this Titans defense is playing well. Broncos defense playing great too. I think if you were going to ask me, is there a defense equipped to handle the physicality that Derrick Henry is going to bring? I think I would put Denver in that argument. I mean, this total seems really low, but I could see this game being like 13-10 very easily.
Yeah.
So I would say under would be the only bet I would be willing to make here. And I think the Titans at 2.5, my guess is if Tannehill plays, that will touch 3, maybe get through 3, but not significantly.
Tennessee, something to keep in mind, is 6-0 against the spread in their last 6 games. So something to keep in mind. They've been really good at covering the number. Browns heading on into South Beach to take on the Miami Dolphins. Right now the spread, Dolphins laying 3.5. That total set at 48.5. The last game was a Monday Night Football win over the Bengals. The Dolphins haven't lost a game yet, too, where Tua has started and finished, and they're coming off of a win against the Bears. So the Dolphins over continues to hit the last few weeks. Why not again? That's kind of where I'm looking in this spot, 48.5. I feel like these points are just going to be scored at will this week. Tank, how do you feel about Tua and taking on the Browns here in this spot in South Beach? The Browns coming off of their bye in week 9.
Man, I feel like the Miami Dolphins are motivated. I mean, that AFC East race, I mean, it's tighter than my drawers after Turkey Day. Like, I mean, man, like all those top 3 teams in the AFC East, like, man, it's close. It's real close. And so it's one of those situations where you cannot take your foot off the pedal. And so that's why I expect Miami to keep on plugging along. That being said, man, Justin Fields just set a QB rushing record against your defense after you made like one of the hugest trades by the deadline that we imagine, with Bradley Chubb going there trying to help that defense. And so even though they don't have a Justin Fields type player at quarterback in Cleveland, they do probably have arguably the best running back in the league in Nick Chubb. And if Justin Fields can run the ball on that defense when he's going to run the majority of the time, I best believe that Nick Chubb can as well. So when I'm looking at that total at 48.5, you're like, man, the Browns should be able to do what they want to in the run game. I think that Miami should be able to do what they want to do in the pass and run game. So, I mean, the over looks enticing, yet at the same time, we're dealing with Miami and Cleveland, and both of those teams are schizophrenic. And so you never really know if it's going to be one of those explosive shootouts or if it's going to be like one of those little ugly, mudded up games, and they go way under this total. And so with that being said, and also for the simple fact that it's really hard to determine which one of these teams is going to show up, how they're going to show up on a weekly basis. Do you feel comfortable saying like Miami's definitely going to win this one, or Cleveland's definitely going to keep that run going after beating a really good Cincinnati team and keep the ball rolling on the road against Miami. I don't feel comfortable with either of those, so I would probably just lay off this game, but I think it can be entertaining.
Yeah, when I look at the over, I look at the fact that the Dolphins rank second in yards per play this season, while only 24th on the defense and opponents' yards per play. And last week, the Bears, they couldn't stop the run. The Browns could take advantage.
No.
They're 10th on offense and yards per play. That's why I feel like maybe the over could hit, Jared. But again, the volatility of both of these teams and not knowing necessarily what we're gonna get every single week out and week in and week out. How would you bet this game if you had to? Or are you staying away too?
The Dolphins here, but I haven't gotten to the window yet. So I'll give you some nuggets on the Browns defense, and then I'm going to kind of echo what Tank said about the game script, which could be a bit intriguing to me. So the first line of my notes on this game was, how is the Browns secondary going to hold up in coverage? And the reason why. So in week 1, Cleveland played the Carolina Panthers and Baker Mayfield, and they had a perfectly covered secondary on 55% of plays. Basically what that means is no open receivers on 55% of plays, which is a very high total. But again, Baker Mayfield, Carolina Panthers. Since then, they have failed a perfectly cover rate on only 25%. It's dropped in half, and they're averaging just 17% on perfectly covered plays, which is the lowest in the league. So if you're asking me, is there a secondary that you don't want to face, or excuse me, a receiver group that you don't want to face when you're struggling to perfectly cover, it would be Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who are combined. It's only week 9, now week 10. Almost 2,000 combined receiving yards in 9 games. It is insane what those two guys are doing. And Tua is the most efficient quarterback in the league right now. So you've got the most efficient quarterback. You've got 2 receivers that have compiled almost 2,000 receiving yards in 9 games. And you have a secondary that has the lowest perfectly cover rate in the league. That is a bad recipe right there. Now, that being said, what Cleveland does really well is something the Dolphins struggle with. So there's an interesting cat and mouse game that is developing with this game plan. You even saw, I don't know if you guys saw the quote of Mike McDaniel literally asking Justin Fields on the sidelines, hey, dude, stop running. Stop. We can't stop it. So stop. It's gotten to that point, which, Mike's a quirky dude. I love him. I think he's hilarious. He's like the perfect mix of nerd and genius for the NFL right now. But the one difference this week, and Tank, you kind of touched on it, and I'm curious where the game script plays out. Jacoby Brissett's not Justin Fields. You're not going to see the design runs, and he's kind of a statue in the pocket. Now, Cleveland does run it effectively between the hashes, because they're just so good up front and they've got 2 great backs. But I don't know if they're going to be as dynamic on the edge running the football. And that's where Miami's defense, which you would hope they start to get a little healthier. They made the move you mentioned for Chubb. I feel like Miami is going to control the tempo in this game. And I feel like they're going to do a better job stopping the run. And if that's the case and Cleveland can't get any sustained offense, I could not only see this being a blowout for Miami, but kind of one of those 31-13 kind of games where it does stay over or stay under a relatively high total.
Yeah, take your thoughts on that.
I mean, I'm just looking because I wanted to go back and just kind of look at Miami the past, just say 4 games. They lost against the Vikings 24-16. They beat the Steelers 16-10. Beat the Lions 31-27, beat the Bears 35-32. I mean, I think I'm seeing a pattern to where no matter who they play, the game's either going to be low scoring and close or high scoring and close. And so when you're telling me that there's pretty much no way that the Cleveland Browns defense can cover those wide receivers in Miami, and I agree with that. Also understand that Nick Chubb and that Cleveland Browns offense is one of the tougher run games to stop, even though it's coming week in and week out. This tells me sneaky shootout. I mean, that would be my lean on this. So I don't know if I would feel comfortable saying that Miami is just going to pull away. We're waiting for that moment. I think we've talked about it before, where if you want to be a dominant team in the AFC, you have to go out and step on somebody's throat. In one of these games, Buffalo has done it, Kansas City has done it. You're at home against the Browns, step on their throat. They just beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Let them come into your house and be like, nah, dog, you ain't doing that here. But can the Miami Dolphins do that? Until you show me that you can, I don't feel comfortable putting money on it. So that's why I'm kind of laying back on this. But I can see it. But I can also see the Browns just staying in and just running up and down the field, hitting the head on the goalpost with Nick Chubb.
Totally. The one thing that makes me a little nervous about, I love your sayings today. Tank, you are on fire today, by the way.
You are on
The
fire
one
today,
thing that
Tank.
worries
You
me,
really are, bud.
it's
Don't
great.
forget to
The
tip
one
your
thing that worries me
waitresses.
about the Dolphins, the one thing that worries me about the Dolphins defense a little bit is there's 27th in the league in third down defense and 29th in the league in red zone defense. And so teams could take advantage of that, especially with the Browns,
Yeah.
with, with the rushing attack that they have. So we'll see how that plays out. The Browns are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 games against the Dolphins. But if the Dolphins want a statement win, this is their time to do it at home against a team like Cleveland. Let's take it to Arrowhead, where the Jaguars heading into town, and man, they are feeling really good. They came back from 17-point deficit last week to beat the Las Vegas Raiders, and man, what a shit show the Raiders are right now. But the Jags still 3-6 on the season. The Chiefs coming off of that overtime win that we just talked about above with the Tennessee Titans. This spread right now set at 9.5, and as Tank likes to say, that's a lot of points. Not necessarily double-digit points, but that's a lot of points. Travis Etienne is going to be an interesting one to watch here. Since week 6, this dude has been that dude. 465 rushing yards, which is first in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence, kind of up and down. Hard to know what to expect, but the Chiefs, all-around package, Tank. They're just such a good freaking team, one of the best 2 teams in the AFC. How do you think this one plays out?
Man, you hit on a lot of good points. I will say that normally when I see -9.5, I'll say like that's a lot of points. In this instance where the Jags were able to knock off the Raiders at home and now they have to go into Kansas City and play a Chiefs team where the Chiefs wanted to stump on the Titans' neck, especially after what they did to the last year. They wanted to get that dub and they wanted to make it look ugly. They couldn't get it done. What do you think they want to do to the Jags this week? Like, I think they want to make it ugly. I think it can get pseudo ugly, but it won't get as ugly as people think because of one name that you raise, and that's Travis Etienne. Like, the Chiefs can get had in the run every now and then. That dude has been something else. They haven't even pinched his explosiveness in the pass game. This has been all totes, and he breaks one. He breaks at least one explosive run every game, normally a couple. And so, looking at the Jags, what they want to do, they see the blueprint from Tennessee. If we can run the ball, make sure that we limit the errors of Trevor Lawrence because he's known to get in the red zone, the opponent's red zone, and throw an interception. You can't do that against the Chiefs if you want to win the game. Run the ball, hopefully get some touchdowns that way, or just settle for field goals, just no turnovers. Keep it close, and then you have to hope that that defense plays against the Chiefs the way against the Los Angeles Chargers early in the season. Now, can they get all of that done in Arrowhead where I feel like the Chiefs are going to be motivated as hell to come and step on these guys' throats? And the Chiefs are a team that showed that in that situation they can step on your throat. I don't know if the Jags can get it done. Am I willing to lay the money on the Chiefs and the points? Nah. At the total being 50.5, I think maybe you go over. I mean, I think the lean here is the over on the points if I had to play anything in this game. But I think that's where I am. I think that's all I have on that. Yeah. I'll keep it
I'm
there.
right there with you. I'm on the over too, 50.5 in this game because you look at what Patrick Mahomes did last week. He put his team on his freaking back against the Titans. It was no one else really but Patrick Mahomes. And the Chiefs are averaging 30.4 points per game this season. The Jags, I know they're 3-6, but they're still the 13th best scoring offense with 22 points per game, Jared. Could the over, I know it's 50.5, it's high. Could it go over here?
It could, but stop me if you've heard this story before. A middling team in the AFC with a good running game comes into Arrowhead.
We've heard this storyline before. I've heard this nighttime tale.
And I would put Trevor Lawrence light years ahead of Malik Willis, as much as I love Malik. And, he did probably as well as he could in that game, considering the game plan and the circumstances. But it feels like the history repeating itself, right? Those who forget history doomed to repeat it. I will say this. Tank is spot on about Travis Etienne. He leads the NFL in rush yards over expected. That's a pretty impressive feat for a guy that's basically in his rookie season. So they have someone in their backfield, and I think that's why they felt okay about shipping out James Robinson. They knew we got this guy in the backfield, Travis Etienne, who is much better. And so far, he's performed like arguably the best running back in the NFL. I think that statistic, rush yards over expected, is a very telling statistic. And I think that's the game plan this week. I think you watch that film from what Tennessee did to the Chiefs' defensive line, and you try to replicate it. Now, the Jaguars' offensive line has had their struggles this year, especially on the interior. They've got a couple of backups there, so we'll see if it's as effective. But again, Trevor Lawrence last week, and you finally saw it. We faded him last week, and the whole reason behind fading the Jaguars last week was because they didn't have the experience, the polish to put a full 60 together. Well, they actually did the reverse of what I expected them last week. They were awful in the first half. Then they came out in the second half. Trevor Lawrence in the second half of that game had an 81% success rate on dropbacks, and the Jaguars had the highest EPA per play, if you remove garbage time, of any NFL team last week in the second half. So for the first time in maybe Trevor's entire career, we saw them sprint through the finish, make the plays in the second half to win a football game. I think that's a massive feather in his cap now heading into Arrowhead this week. Do I think they can go in and beat the Chiefs? Probably not. But if I were to bet this game, I think I would take the points. And I would hope that Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence can replicate what we saw last week, and they can control the tempo in this game. And again, Kansas City, they've covered at home as many times as Lauren and Tank have and myself this year. 0. 0-4 against the spread at home this season. So you want to say it's a lot of points? Probably is this week for Kansas City.
Yeah, it is. It really is true. The Jags, though, Jared, I will say 1-7 against the spread in their last 8 road games. But 9.5 is still a lot of points for them to be getting, especially with the run game that they have, the Travis Etienne and Trevor Lawrence. He could have a good bounce back, solid-ish performance. Let's take it up to Lambeau. I am so excited to talk about this game because the Cowboys coming into town to take on the Green Bay Packers, and they are laying 5 points here in this spot. Mike McCarthy returns to Green Bay for the first time since being fired in 2018. These stories write themselves. The Cowboys, 6-1 in their last 7 games. Their only loss in those games came to the Eagles and the Packers. Looking to snap a 5-game winning streak after, guess what? My Detroit Lions win last week. Let's go.
Wow.
For the first time against the Packers in forever. And you look at the Packers offense, they're only averaging 15.8 points per game over the last 5 games. Aaron Rodgers, that dude looks deflated, and they still have injuries on the offensive side. Honestly, I would feel comfortable laying up to a touchdown with the Cowboys here. How about you, Tim?
Yeah. So we have Dallas coming off a bye, trying to keep pace with Philly, and we see how well Philly's playing. So Dallas should come in motivated. And I feel like every time Dallas goes up to Green Bay, they have to think that Dez caught it. Like, that's in everyone's head. And so I think they're always trying to redeem themselves over that play, right?
Over
we're going to see it all week, right?
All week.
And then when I think about it from the Green Bay perspective, because I go through these games and I just write down the first thing that's on my head. That's why you hear a lot of random notes and phrases. I put Green Bay is reeling. I put Green Bay is reeling. A wounded dog should bite, but we'll see. Do you think they'll bite? You know what I'm saying? We've been waiting for these guys to bite for the past 5 games, and they haven't. I mean, they've tried to gnaw on some things. Like, they tried to gnaw on the Buffalo Bills. They tried to gnaw on the Detroit Lions. But ultimately, when it's all said and done, man, that dog don't bite. And when you're going against one of the better teams in the league, definitely one of the best defenses in the league, and now that Dallas Cowboys offense, they have Dak back. They see what they have in Tony Pollard. They're going to probably line up some more explosive him. Zeke's going to play this week. You're also getting healthy at the wide receiver position. Man, I mean, so if there's one thing that I feel good about, it's definitely the under, because I feel like the Green Bay Packers defense, they're playing motivated ball the past couple of weeks. They slowed down a really good offense in Buffalo. And even though they lost to the Detroit Lions, I really don't put that on the defense. I mean, they had the Detroit Lions offense to a low total. So you feel good about the under here, under 43. But man, -5 Dallas. I mean, they should be able to get that done. But do I want to put my money on that? I'm not sure. Green Bay, they may bite. They should bite. There's been down 5 games. This is going on to 6. They need to bite at some point. But will they? Will they? Jared, maybe you can answer that question for me. Will they?
That is the question of the week. Will they bite? Jared?
I like the Packers here. Call me crazy.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. I mean, listen. All right, let's put it all. Let's zoom out for a second. I'm not saying the Packers are my favorite play of the week, but this line was Green Bay -4.5 over the summer. This line has flipped a full 10 points.
It
And
happens fast.
it seems so easy. It's so easy. Green Bay, and I have no good numbers to back up Green Bay. I mean, here, I'll give you the numbers I have on Green Bay. Last week, they were 16th out of 24 teams in EPA per play on offense, despite facing a Detroit defense that is dead last in schedule adjusted efficiency.
Literally so bad.
Literally the worst defense in the league. Rashawn Gary, out. Eric Stokes, starting corner, out. Aaron Jones, in a boot. Romeo Doubs, in a boot. Aaron Rodgers threw 3 picks, graded out negatively in CPOE and EPA per play. You know how hard it is for a quarterback to grade out negative EPA per play? The ball's in your hands every play. So it was a really, really bad performance. Arguably rock bottom. I think it's fair to say, as bad as Green Bay has looked, that performance was rock bottom. Not cracking the double-digit point total against the Detroit Lions in a building that is built
easy
for
on the
no-
Lions. Easy
I'm
on
sorry,
the Lions.
Lauren, but it's really, frankly, I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to bash the Lions here. I don't know if Detroit was really good defensively or Green Bay was just that bad. It's really, really hard to make that distinction for me.
A little bit of both.
Now,
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of both, maybe a little more on the former than the latter. But the one thing I will say, and Tank, I'm glad you mentioned this because we discussed this on Let's Bet It this morning with an NFC North reporter about the Packers defense. I do think we're seeing some signs of life. The Lions offense has been pretty good. You mentioned it. The Bills offense has been great. And they held both of those teams to under expectations based on their point totals. And I think there's at least some anger and some frustration that is now being taken out on the field because Joe Barry's scheme has been talked about and ripped to shreds for the last 2 years, basically. Because I could argue that it's the defense that really cost the Packers last year in that game against the Niners, the special teams also being at the top of the list. But I feel like this is a Packers team that has nowhere to go but up. And if you're telling me the market has completely flipped on this game and we're getting 5 points at home at Lambeau, a place where Dallas historically has not played well. Cowboys off the bye. Maybe they're a little sluggish to start. I feel like everyone's going to be on Dallas in this game. And you know how I feel when everyone's on one side of the coin. I want to try to find a reason to back Green Bay. I can't find an analytical reason to back Green Bay. I can't. Other than rock bottom, backs against the wall. This is it. You lose this game and you get blown out. Season's kind of over. You've lost 6 in a row. It's done.
The season's already over.
Hey,
they lost 5 in a row, and Aaron Rodgers looks like trash.
Yeah. Hey, Jared, I got 2 nuggets. I have 2 nuggets for you. The first one is this. People, you're saying that it's rock bottom. People were saying the same thing about crypto, right? And you see what's going on right now. That's my first little nugget. I've been telling
people to sell their Bitcoin for months, so that ain't on me.
That's my first nugget. And my second nugget is this. Let's rewind to the first time that we ever had a show together. All I could see was Aaron Rodgers looking up saying, "Lord, if you're listening, help!" That was against the Minnesota Vikings defense in that pass rush. Now, who has the most dominant pass rush in the NFL? That dude, Michael Parsons, and that dude, Tank Lawrence, on the Dallas Cowboys defense. So do you think that if they can't block those guys, if they can't block some of the other defensive lines that they play in the league, that they have any chance on offense going up against that Dallas front 7? Huh?
I don't.
So is this bottom? Is this bottom? Or is what's coming up this week? Or is what's coming up this week against the Dallas Cowboys? Or is this going to be bottom?
Year. If they wake up against this defense, it would be one of the bigger surprises of the year. It would be. In a year full of them.
Yeah.
So that's the thing. It's so like are you willing to put your money? Are you willing to put your money on this being the biggest surprise of the year? We asking the question that the people want to know.
Just for you, I will put one shiny unit. I'm not going to make a big stink about it and beat my chest if it hits, but I will put a shiny unit on Green Bay money line just for you. Because I listen, at some point, you would think pride takes over, right, Tank? This is I mean, they were 13, not 13-3, but they've had 13 wins each of the last 2 years. I mean,
A
this is
wounded dog
this
should
might be
bite.
my favorite game of the week.
A
This
wo-
really might
A
be my
wound
a
favorite game of
wo-
the week.
a wounded dog should bite, but will it? We
We
gonna
will
Here's the
find
see.
out.
thing. For me, when you feel like you hit rock bottom, you lost your house, you got evicted, you have nothing to eat, and then all of a sudden the Dallas Cowboys come into town and it starts raining and you're like, well shit, this is actually rock bottom now that the thunder started storming. And honestly, when you look at a team like the Dallas Cowboys defense and that dude Micah Parsons, they've only allowed 16.6 points per game, third in the NFL, and 13 takeaways this season, which is eighth most in the
Nasty.
NFL. And then you look at their offense, the way that they're going right now, and I know it was against the Lions and I know it was against the Bears, but 73 total points scored in the last two games since Dak has come back from injury. He's completed 77% of his passes, 457 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception over the last 2 weeks. I feel like they're going to get rocked this weekend, and I kind of love to see it because I'm done with the Green Bay Packers. I've been done with them since week 3. Jared
Jeez,
knows. I went on a rant like after week 3
LJ.
or week 4
Oh my
about,
goodness.
I know. I am off with the Green
LJ
Bay
wants to
Packers.
bury them.
I just imagine you with like a
Just,
toothpick in your mouth and like a little pimp coat like Silky Johnson, like you the biggest hater in the world right now today. And I'm loving it. Oh my
Haterade.
goodness.
That's one
I'm
of my
like,
favorite
that
Chappelle
dog,
Show
that
segments,
dog
by
ain't
the way.
biting. That dog ain't biting. That dog's gonna whimper to the sidelines after Micah Parsons comes into town and freaking rushes Aaron Rodgers. He's gonna go sit on the right bench for the rest of that game. I'm so looking forward to seeing it. We'll see how that one plays out. I'm sure we'll be talking about it. I'm heated now. Oh my gosh, I'm sweating a little bit. Let's take it to San Francisco. Sunday night football. The Chargers are coming into town. The 49ers taking care of business with the other Cali team twice this season in the NFC West, going up against the Rams. Now, the Chargers head north, who are coming off of a win against the Atlanta Falcons. The thing that surprised me is that the Bolts came out of their bye week more injured than they were going into it. This is the largest underdog that they have been all season. 49ers are 7-point favorites here. And the 49ers now coming off of a bye, and they're getting healthier. Man, Tank, I don't know, but Christian McCaffrey's fitting in so well to that 49ers offense. They have one of the best D lines between them and the Cowboys. It's a good 1-2 punch in terms of their defensive lines. I feel like the 49ers are going to blow things out of the water. I don't know. But how would you lean here with them laying 7 points?
Man, it's hard out there for the Chargers. I mean, I'm really glad that they were able to pull off that win against the Atlanta Falcons on the road. Because, like you said, I mean, they even ended up coming into this game. The Niners are coming off a good win against the Rams. They're coming off that beat down against the Chiefs. So, I mean, trust me, they're still pissed off. They're still motivated. And now you got the Chargers coming up to them playing at home. The Niners are the number one team run defense when you think about it. I mean, they give up the least rush yards per game in the NFL. It's not like that's the Chargers' strong suit, but right now, I mean, Keenan Allen should be back. We'll see,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't know how much he's going to be able to play because he's been dealing with that hammy. No Mike Williams. Joshua Palmer and DeAndre Carter, some of those other guys stepped up in the pass game. Gerald Everett's nice, but there's really no one that scares you in the pass game
Yeah.
unless like Keenan Allen kind of, hops in a hot tub time machine and reverts back to like 4 years or so ago. And even though Austin Eckler is that dude, I really don't see him just having this monstrous game where they're going to give him 20 plus carries in the run game and that he's going to be able to kind of replicate what some of these other backs are able to do in the run specifically
Mm-hmm.
for the Chargers. So when you look at it from that perspective, like what can the Chargers really do on offense against a really good Niners defense that should be pretty healthy coming out of the box?
Mm-hmm.
Um, the Chargers have been known to kind of get into some of these tough games and roll over and just have to take it. And this
Mm-hmm.
may be a game where they go up to Northern California and they take it. So
Mm-hmm.
45 and a half, 45 and a half total. Like, I feel good about the under. I think that Niners defense is going to come and play correct. When you have Jimmy Garoppolo, you probably put him in situations where he should succeed, but you don't have him do too much because you don't want to allow the other team to kind of stay in the game one way or another. So I feel really good about probably the under on this one. Niners -7. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, this is one of those situations where you probably should feel really good about that too. You know me, I usually don't like to kind of mess around with those big numbers in that 7 and up range. But if you're going to pick any of these numbers out of this group of games that we have this week, this would probably be the one. having the Niners at home
Yeah,
against the Chargers. But I would probably err more towards the total than anything else.
absolutely. The reason that I feel so confident, and Jared, I want to get your take on this too, and the 49ers here is they just have so many offensive weapons. I feel like they're really going to lean on the running game. They're really going to lean on their short passing game. And you look at the Falcons last week, they were able to drive down the field with the run. San Fran's going to be able to do it a lot easier than the Falcons did, right? I mean, do you feel like the 49ers offense could take advantage of a Chargers defense? They rank dead last in yards per carry.
Yeah, I think this game, if I were going to pick one game on the card this week that has shootout vibes, this is the game. For a couple of reasons. First of all, I think the game script dictates the Chargers are foolish even if they attempt a running play. They're dead last in run block win rate, and the Niners are top 5 in run stop. So it's strength on weakness. So if I'm Joe Lombardi, Chargers offensive coordinator, and I'm thinking to myself, how the heck are we going to beat the Niners off a bye? Market thinks you're going to get your ass kicked. This line open 3.5. It's all the way out to 7. Tons of steam on the Chargers. If I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to devise a game plan to beat the Niners? It ain't running Austin Eckler into this line with an offensive line that can't block. So right there, it's Justin Herbert. Go win the game for me, pal. Go be a superstar. Now, the weapons are a little bit depleted on the outside. Keenan Allen's like the only player I think in the league that can get more injured during a bye week. But that's neither here nor there. I don't know how that happened.
They came out of the
I don't know how that happened.
More injuries than they did going in. I don't understand it.
Yes,
what are you doing?
I don't understand. Only the Chargers could be more injured after the bye than before.
That's what I have no clue how. How?
I don't know. Let's throw that out for a minute, and let's just operate under the assumption that Mike Williams hopefully plays, and it's the rest of this Chargers offense that, they've got a couple of guys, but it's definitely nothing to write home about. Now we go to the other side of the ball, and the Chargers defense has not been good. And so I'm thinking to myself, Jimmy Garoppolo off a bye with another week with Christian McCaffrey. You think we're going to see Elijah Mitchell in this game. Can you imagine Elijah Mitchell and Christian McCaffrey in the backfield together? Now, it was Jeff Wilson. They traded him to Miami, but they ran the pony package, and it was very successful a couple weeks ago when they had both CMC and Wilson in the backfield together. So Jimmy Garoppolo, game script-wise, you would think Niners get off to a good start. And then it's bombs away for Justin Herbert. This is a pretty fair total at 46. This feels like 34, 26, 27 kind of game. Where
you think the Chargers score many points?
I think the Chargers are going to just say, screw it. We have nothing left to lose. We're on the road. We can't run the ball. Justin, you're supposed to be a top 10 pick, MVP vibes. Go do your thing. To me, that's the only avenue for success that the Chargers have in this game. Because if they try to do what they did last week, which is run Austin Eckler into the line a million times, they couldn't run the ball on the Falcons. You think you're going to run the ball on the Niners? You're crazy. So it's just game script. I think this is Chargers, Justin Herbert, go be a superhero. And I think the Niners are going to have success no matter what they do on offense. So, yeah, I think this game has 50 as the floor for me, frankly.
All right, let's kind of dig into this just a little bit more. I don't want to stick on this game too much, but I love your take. And like with me just kind of going in and saying that, man, maybe because I got a lot of Chargers on my fantasy team, so I'm trying to reverse jinx it. but like I look at it and I see like, all right, they played against a really good Denver Broncos defense and they lost 19-16, so they only scored 16 points. They played against a really good Seattle defense. They only scored 23 points, and they lost that one 37-23. But that goes over your total number, so that's interesting right there. Then you go against a Falcons team. Defense has been playing, and then they win that game 20-17. So they've been scoring around 20 points per game in the last few weeks, and now they get a matchup against that 49ers defense, which we'll probably say is what one. I mean, do you think the Niners defense is better than Denver? Or just right up there with them?
Yes.
Equal?
Okay. So the thing that I'll say is different about those games, especially the game against Denver, they tried to run the ball in that game, and they just couldn't do it. Eckler had 15 carries in that game. Take the under on Austin Eckler's carries this week. Like, I don't like – but again, that doesn't mean that it's going to happen because wink and what actually is reality sometimes are so far apart that you think that how do I even come up with this shit?
Mm-hmm.
But in my mind, if I'm Joe Lombardi and I'm watching the Niners game film, I'm not even trying to run the ball, especially if I'm watching what I just did against the Falcons defense. I would literally tell Justin Herbert, Justin, get that arm loose, pal. You're throwing it 50 times in this game. Like, that's what I would be scheming for. Now, again, we'll see. Joe Lombardi, stubborn old Joe, might just run Eckler into the line a million times in this game, and it finishes 13-10. But I don't see that being the case. First of all, game script might throw that out the window. If the Niners start fast, Atlanta didn't start. Actually, to be fair, Atlanta did start fast, and then they just went into a hole for the rest of the game. But I think the Niners, to me, get out to a really fast start, and then it's Joe Lombardi, figure out a way to throw the ball because you ain't running it against this Niners front.
Which offense do you trust more, the Los Angeles Rams or the Los Angeles Chargers? I'm looking back at this game a couple of weeks ago where the Niners beat them 31-14. You see it
Chargers
being a little bit something like that, a little bit more? Okay.
The Rams' offensive line is, I think, the worst in the league. I honestly do. And I think Herbert is much healthier than Matt. I think we're going to hear after the season that Matthew Stafford's been playing the entire year with like a chip in his elbow, is my guess.
Well, probably with the amount of times he's been getting sacked and how his O-line hasn't protected him at all. At all. Jeez.
But both teams are kind of on the same plane. It's ironic they play in the same stadium.
Yeah. No, it is. Justin Herbert and his McRib do look pretty healthy. I just feel like he doesn't have a ton of weapons to work with, so he's going to have to put that team on his back if they want to beat the 49ers. We have two key divisional games to get into, Monday Night Football and then our best bet. So let's start it out with the Lions taking on the Bears. Right now, the Bears are 3-point favorites, total 48.5. NFC North shootout, baby, between two of the bottom teams in the NFC North. The Lions coming off of a huge win over the Green Bay Packers. They put on a clinic on the defensive side of the ball against Aaron Rodgers and that Green Bay Packers offense. And the Bears couldn't stop anything against the Dolphins. They lost 35-32, but Justin Fields, man, these last 3 weeks, he's been so impressive. Last week, 178 rushing yards, 123 passing yards, and 4 total touchdowns. Where is this coming from? I feel like, Tank, the Bears and that franchise is just learning how to use Justin Fields to his strengths. I feel like he's going to continue that against the worst defense against the Detroit Lions.
I mean, I think we saw it start in that New England game where they just got him out of the pocket, rolled him a little bit, give him some easier looks in the pass game, and just showed a little bit of a threat with his legs. And that kind of opens up a lot of things when you're playing against opposing defenses. And then you've noticed, like, since that New England game where you're talking about the Dallas game and now Miami, the more you involve his legs, the more stress it puts on the defense, not only in the run and the pass game. And he's been taking advantage of it. I mean, there was a lot of hate on Justin Fields on social media to start this season, but now you hear his crickets. I mean, you know what I'm saying? And that's the thing, that he's been playing this well. He just got Chase Claypool last week, and Chase Claypool is Chase Claypool. I mean, he's a solid player, but he really hasn't done anything for him yet. It's not like he's just this number one dog, like adding A.J. Brown to your offense yet, and still this dude Justin Fields continues to ball out. And now he gets a matchup against the Detroit Lions defense. I hate to talk about your Lions like that. This is going to be another interesting topic, too. Another interesting nugget. Like, we see how much Aaron Rodgers struggled against the Detroit Lions with no weapons around him. What are we going to say if Justin Fields balls out against this same defense a week later? I mean, I just wonder what that narrative is. I'm kind of interested to see what that's going to look like. That being said, I mean, I feel like this can be one of the more interesting games on the slate this week. For the simple fact that the Lions can throw up some points. The Chicago Bears have shown that they can throw up some points now. We know what you can do against that Lions defense, and with the Bears getting rid of 2 of their best players on defense, we saw what the Miami Dolphins were able to do. Like, you can score on that defense. Man, this can shoot out. And so if you're looking at this from a fantasy DFS perspective, like, I'm just looking at points galore. If you're looking at this total of 48.5, it's like, oh, man, I got to like the over right here. Who's going to win the game? I don't know. I believe that Dan Campbell, he's like when you're talking to Mike Vrabel and talking about like his coaching acumen, I was like, Vrabes is a lot like Dan Campbell, except that he doesn't go out in the media. He doesn't have like all of these bite your kneecaps and all in the public. And at the same time, instead of like playing a lot of teams tough and then losing, Braves plays a lot of teams tough and then wins the games. I mean, they're kind of similar in their demeanor. They're just getting different outputs from their teams, but I kind of like both of those coaches. That being said, I expect the Detroit Lions to come out here, play aggressive, try to keep this game close. I think the Bears are playing with a lot of confidence. They have some momentum on their side, even though they lost a couple games to the Cowboys and the Dolphins. I mean, those are two really good teams. They play them close, so they're feeling really good about themselves. Both of these teams are going to be anxious to get a win. So messing around with Chicago -3 or something like that, nah, I don't feel comfortable there. But going over 48.5, like hell yeah, I like that. That sounds like good money
Yeah.
right there to me.
Yeah, hell yeah, the total at 48.5. The Bears have scored at least 29 points per game in their last 3 games. The Lions allowing the most points per game in the NFL with just under 30 PPG. Jared, over. Is that the best bet here?
I mean, on paper, it seems that way based off of especially the metrics that I look at over the last 6 or 7 weeks. These defenses are 30th and 32nd, respectively, in EPA per play. I mean, there's something finicky, though, about this line. I feel like the Bears, it has pushed through 3, so I guess that's bullish. But I'm seeing some 2.5 still at some of the sharper shops, including our pals at the Superbook, the fine sponsor of this program. And that kind of scares me a little bit because my initial read would be, man, Chicago's balling right now. This line should hop to 3 in a minute. Because last week it was 2.5. And it hasn't really, actually, to be fair, it was 1.5 last week. But the move to 3 I thought would have happened immediately, and it's kind of slowly limped its way towards 3 this week. So maybe there's a little bit of pushback in the market for the Lions catching the field goal. Maybe it's a little bit of the vibes last week with how well they played. Man, the contrarian in me really wants to take the under here, but I don't think I can do it. This is the ultimate contrarian under spot. The Bears offense is on fire, and the Lions defense can't stop a nosebleed unless it's coming from Aaron Rodgers. So the over just seems so easy. But in the NFL, that's usually where good bets go to die. So I think in my mind, the under's the bet, but I can't get there with my heart because I love this story with Justin Fields. And can we give Luke Getsy a little bit of love here? Comes over from Green Bay, has arguably the best quarterback of our generation as his, wingman. And we were kind of questioning the scheme early in the season. And then all of a sudden the light switch is turned on. They're moving Justin Fields around a lot more, and you're seeing the progression. It's really impressive. So I give Luke Getsy a ton of credit. I love the story with Justin Fields. He's playing like a top 10 quarterback right now. But I think the number here, the total has moved a little too much for me to be comfortable with the over. 45.5 last week, and rightfully so. We saw a 3-point move to 48.5 this week after the Bears just continued to pummel opposing defenses. So I like Tank's angle. The numbers here in my mind don't fully get there with the over, but I would be shocked. It would be a very contrarian move if this game did stay under.
Yeah, this one's going to be an interesting one. I will say the underdog is 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 meetings, which bodes well for my Detroit Lions. And Tank, I also appreciate you mentioning fantasy football because it's usually me mentioning it, and Jared harps on me for it. So thank you. I have to bring it in once a show or once every time we talk, so it's great. Last but not least, yeah, I know. We have an NFC West showdown between the Cardinals and the Rams. The Rams laying 3 points. That total set 44. The Cardinals coming off of a massive loss to the Seattle Seahawks. They got obliterated in the second half. And then the Rams coming off of a last-minute loss, literally, to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both teams have looked really, really bad. But at least the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, for me, have shown, some signs of life. The Rams have dominated this rivalry, Tank. They're 11-1 straight up in the last 12 meetings, but I just don't feel like this is the same Rams team that we're used to seeing over the last couple of years. How do you feel like this one plays out?
Yeah, so the Rams are coming in. They've lost 2 games in a row. Cardinals coming in. They've lost 2 games in a row. The thing is, you're just talking about this lead into the game, and the only thing I could see was Dave Chappelle, Bigfoot, Littlefoot. That's how both of these teams are rolling into this game. And I really like how I talked about the Lions against the Bears could be one of the more interesting games on the slate this week. This could be the ugliest game on the slate. We're so used to seeing both of these offenses just kind of flying around. Cooper Kupp doing this thing, Nuke the Bomb going out there flexing, Kyler Murray using his legs, running around. Man, these have been 2 of the more disappointing teams in the league. And where's the bottom? I think that should be the theme of this week's show. Like, where's the bottom? Like, who's going to set the
Mhm.
bottom in this game? Is it going to be the Rams, who should have won that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and
Yeah.
did every damn thing possible to lose the game, and they were able to pull it off? And then not only that, like, I don't know if people really understand like how big this is. I mean, did y'all see the comments that Jalen Ramsey said to the media? Like,
Mhm.
I've been in
Yeah.
locker rooms, like when I played in college, there's always this competitive relationship with the offense, but like it's healthy. Like, you
Yeah.
enjoy the guys, like you love the guys on the other side of the ball. When I played in Tennessee, those really good teams with like Eddie George, Steve McNair, all those guys, we had the Freak and Keith Bullock, all those guys on defense, like had a healthy respect. Like, we were competitive as hell, but like we never really crossed that line. I got in Minnesota and there was just like this different vibe where it's like if one side of the ball isn't really performing, like you'll see like a little bit of attitude and like some things would kind of
Mm.
sneak out there every now and then. That was like a different feeling for me. It's like that can kind of, man, that kind of stuff, if it kind of permeates through your team, like it's not a good look. It's not a good feel. And so for
Mhm.
that to get sprinkled out there into the media, into the Twinosphere, into the metaverse, like I'm interested to see like how the Rams are going to bounce back from that. Like, is that going to be something that just basically tears this team apart from inside and allows the Arizona Cardinals to take advantage? Or is it going to bring them together? They have like a team only meeting, like players only meeting, and then somehow come bounce back and then make some huge strides this week against a Arizona Cardinals team that's broken in their own right. You see Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins like arguing with each other on the sideline. You've seen the head coach and Kyler Murray arguing with each other. I mean, man, there's
Mhm.
just like a lot of bad vibes going through both of these teams. And I probably talked a lot about a whole bunch of nothing for people who are like, yo, which way would you just bet on this one? Like, honestly, with all that turmoil and volatility in this game, I don't have a damn clue.
No, it is true. There's bad vibes from both teams. Like, all is rainbows and sunshine and butterflies when you're winning a Super Bowl and making it all the way to the last game of the year. But when you lose 4 of your last 5 games and you're only averaging 16 points per game, things aren't going to be
Mm.
pretty for a team. And when you can't stop anybody either, you can't stop Tom Brady in the last minute of the game. It falls on both sides at that point. And then Arizona, you see Kyler having a little argument on the side of the field last game. Him and Hopkins need to be on the same page this week. I don't know what was said, but they had a heated exchange on the sidelines last weekend. So, Jared, for you, which team has less drama going on and going to come out on top of this one?
So one of my favorite movies, underrated, Big Trouble in Little China. Kurt Russell movie from the 80s.
Yeah,
I don't know if
I've
you've
never
ever
seen it.
Tank knows that one. Tank, I feel like you and I are kind of kindred spirits with our taste in
yeah,
movies.
dog.
But that's the first thing I thought of in this game. Big Trouble in Little China. Now, the Little China part is
Oh,
not,
no.
it's about a movie in San Francisco and, the little Chinatown, and Kurt Russell goes on this big hero streak. That's neither here nor there. But the way that this game is now being booked, the Sharps have no idea either. Line open 3, goes to 4, back to 3. Total's been pretty stagnant around 43.5. There is a lot of just unknowns, mysteries. We don't know which direction this one's going to go in. I will say this. If you were going to ask me, and you did ask me, Chargers or Rams, which offense do you trust the least? The Rams are the answer. If you were going to rephrase that, Cardinals or Rams, which offense do I trust the least? That's a tougher question right now, honestly, because when I look at this Rams offense, dead last in yards per play. They had a 23% success rate against the Bucs. By the way, that is a worse success rate than Malik Willis had on the road in prime time against the Chiefs. That just can't happen for the defending Super Bowl champs. And oh, by the way, that lightning strike to Cooper Kupp, 34% of the Rams' total offense for the entire game came on that
Crazy.
one play to Cooper Kupp,
Crazy.
which, oh, by the way, was a backup safety in blown coverage. If Antoine Winfield was playing, that play never happens. So there's big trouble in Little China for the Rams right now. I think you can say the same thing about the Cardinals, though, with Cliff Kingsbury. I don't know which quarterback I trust more. This game is a total stay away for me. Total stay away. Now, if you were going to ask me under the total based off of those vibes, I could make a case for that, but it's beneath that key number of 44. So I think the total offers a little less value. And again, when you have weakness on weakness, which in my opinion is this game, offense bad, defense underachieving. Jalen Ramsey's comments, you were on the field when Tom Brady went 75 yards in like 30 seconds. How can you open your mouth after that game is beyond me. But it's bad. It's bad on both sides. And I want absolutely nothing to do with this game.
Yeah, stay away completely for all of us. We just want to see the drama unfold. It's like in high school, you stay out of the drama, but you just watch it all happen on the table next door, you know? Yeah.
There you go.
Just want to eat my lunch and just mind my own business over here. Watch the drama unfold at the table next to me. Monday Night Football. Let's get into the Commanders taking on the Eagles. The Eagles, perfect. Halfway through the season, another win for them against the Texans last week. Honestly, I feel like they're going to go 10-0 between this game with the Commanders and they have the Colts next week, who none of us know what to expect from the Indianapolis Colts after their hiring.
Man, what an easy schedule.
But that's neither here nor there. The Eagles laying 10.5 points. Tank, a lot of points in this one. The Commanders' narrow loss to the Vikings last weekend. These teams played back in week 3. Eagles won 24-8, but they've been dominant basically in every single facet of the game. Do you see that continuing here, or is 10.5 points too much to lay?
Oh, man. Like the Eagles overwhelmed the Commanders in that first matchup. That was a game where that front seven, they just harassed the hell out of Carson Wentz.
Yeah.
I mean, they were on Carson Wentz like flies on shit. Like it was crazy. It seemed like damn near every play. I mean, there's no other way to put it. And so, can the Eagles replicate that on defense? I mean, they should be able to. I think Taylor Heineke has played better quarterback for the Washington Commanders. That being said, I mean, Jared was just talking about, they had that lead going into the fourth quarter, and then Taylor Heineke, just kind of gave the game away for the Commanders. Team just lost as a whole. So you lose a devastating game like that against a really good team in the Minnesota Vikings, then you have to go on the road and play your division rival. I really don't see this ending well for the Commanders. I think they go out, they try to play them competitively tough. I really don't like a whole lot of points in divisional matchups like this just because teams tend to know each other pretty well.
Yeah.
And when you look at the last game, what was the final score? 24-8 or something like that. I mean, so that score actually ended up under this total right here of 44. Could this game end up being closer? Possibly. Do I expect the Eagles defense to play well? Yeah. If the Washington Commanders get Chase Young back, he's been practicing. Do we know anything about that? Is he going to play?
I was actually just looking that because I think that if you were going to ask me a galvanizing thing for this Washington team, him back would be, rising tide lifts all boats because Tank, you nailed it. They got, and I was on the Commanders in the first game, 7 points as a home dog, and it was ugly. I think it was either 7 sacks or 8 sacks. It was ugly. And I'm not going to say Chase Young's going to have any impact on how well the offensive line plays, but Jordan Davis being out makes things a little more interesting for this Eagles front. I think Hargraves and Cox have played slightly below expectation. Jordan Davis has been fantastic. Maybe Washington can run the ball a little bit better. They will have Brian Robinson in this game. They did not have him in the last game. I want to look for a reason to back the Commanders because I think the market on the Eagles has gotten stretched. They're 8-0. I know they didn't cover last week. I think that's an important point. You saw it last week. You saw the market on the Eagles finally correct itself. They played well enough to win and cover against the Texans, but they made one mistake in the red zone. We had the Hurts fumble and the one drive at the end of the first half where you thought maybe it was going to be a field goal for the Texans, turned out being a touchdown. That was enough. They won by 12. The line was 13. So I think the market's gotten a little stretched on Philly. And as much as, I'm at over 8.5 wins, I'm waiting for that money to come this week. I think it might be a little bit too much for me to lay the 10.5 because I think the market's, again, starting to become a little stretched on Philly. And while I love this Eagles team, it seems like we're going to start to see some regression with the point spread down the stretch.
I'll give you
That makes
one
sense.
reason to maybe look at the Commanders plus 10.5 in this spot. I feel like the Eagles have been
Give me a
dominant in
reason.
every single facet of the game, except they cannot stop the run. They rank 29th in opponent yards per carry. The
Yeah.
Texans gained 5.3 yards per
No
carry
Jordan
in
Davis.
week 9. And then you look at the Commanders and what they do with Taylor Heineke under center the last 3 games. They've been running almost 50% of their plays. So they
I
might
like
be
it.
able to keep it closer in that spot. 10.5 is a lot of points, and I feel like maybe they could take advantage with their run game. But that would be like the only saving grace for the Commanders here in this
But
spot.
then
The
think
Eagles
about
have
the
been
game
dominant in
script.
every other facet of the game.
Washington controls the tempo a little bit. You take the pressure off Heineke. Carson Wentz was a sitting duck back there in the last game that these two teams played.
Mm-hmm.
You take that element away from Philly's defense and you turn Jalen Hurts into a quarterback that might have to throw the ball to actually come. So game script wise, I could see this one being tight. I really could. Second time around against a divisional opponent after the first game was an absolute blowout. The divisional games, Tank, you know that. They matter more. They matter. It's like 1.5 games. So this one at prime time, I'm not saying the Commanders are going to win this game, but I can absolutely build a case game script
keeping it
wise
close.
why this one's going to play out a little differently than the last one did.
Agree. A lot of
It's gonna
times
be
you have to
interesting.
talk through some games like this in order for it to make
100%.
sense. And I think this is one of those games where you kind of get the 3 of us together. You kind of talk through the different narratives and kind of make sense of the thing as a whole. And I think when you do that, it makes more sense being like, hey, Washington plus 10.5, plus 11 on some sites, like isn't a bad play.
Yeah.
Brain power, baby. Look at that. We're going to get to our best bets in a second, but first of all, Pickswise Playbook, presented by Superbook Sports. Download the Superbook app or visit superbook.com right now, and they're going to match your first bet up to $1,000. Plus, we are all rooting for safeties, Tank and Jared. If you place a $100 pregame bet on any spread or any total of Superbook and there's a safety scored in any game on Sunday, you, my friends of Pickswise Playbook, get a $50 bonus. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions and to sign up for the #1 voted sportsbook in Vegas, now available in the palm of your hand. All right, let's get into our best bets. Tank, I'm handing it to you first. Your best bet of week 10.
Like I said at the beginning of this show, I feel like I need to totally redeem myself. Even though I'm not a fan of any team, I have to pay respect to the Tennessee Titans since they were the team that drafted me. Coming off that tough loss in Arrowhead, they get the Denver Broncos at home. I feel like the Denver Broncos is still an offense that is broken. I feel really good about the Titans defense showing up. That Denver defense shows up each and every week, regardless of who they play. The under looks good right here at it's 38. Now at 39, but like 38, I still think I like that under right there. And you give me the Titans minus 2.5, will they be able to win by a field goal or more? I think so. So give me Tennessee minus 2.5, and I like that under 2.
I like it. Jared, your best bet, week 10. Hit me with it.
Well, there's been 8 safeties in the NFL this year, by the way. And we have a safety here on the show. So safety clearly is the theme. Theme. Yeah. Safety's the player, right? No, I'm just kidding. Over 1.5 safeties this week. Just kidding. We're going to go under 42.5 Colts Raiders. So first of all, the Colts are an under machine even when they had a capable offense and Matt Ryan at quarterback and a Frank Reich, who was a good schemer, a good play caller calling the plays. Now we have none of those things. we have Jeff Saturday coaching this game. We have Parks Frazier, not Parks and Rec, Parks Frazier, 30-year-old assistant passing game coordinator specialist as the play caller, the de facto offensive coordinator. He's never had a role higher than an assistant at any spot in his career. And he's going to be calling plays this Sunday for an NFL team. Make sense of that. I can't. The Colts defense, though, is a really good defense. And they are kind of immune from all of these changes, which have all kind of happened on the offensive side of the ball the last 3 weeks. OC fired, Matt Ryan benched, offensive-minded head coach fired. The Colts defense actually has been playing pretty well. They got Kwity Payback last week. He is a huge cog in the running game. And if you think about what the Raiders are going to try to do here, well, Derek Carr's been brutal. The offensive line stinks. You would expect Josh Jacobs to be a big part of the game plan. Well, that's kind of what the Colts do well, stopping the run. So game script-wise, let's play this out. The Raiders can't run the ball. The Colts probably don't want to pass the ball. Jonathan Taylor back. Colts offensive line, I think we're going to see a lot of offensive, right, left, center, run the ball, left, right, center. Sam Ehlinger, keep him out of those known passing situations. Keep the clock moving. And to me, I don't see either offensive line generating a ton of movement in this game. The Raiders defense actually has been pretty competent against the run as well. They're a top 10 unit in EPA per rush. So the game script to me plays out like this game will be played in a phone booth. And 42.5 is not even the lowest total on the board this week. So we're going to go under with the Raiders and the Colts this week.
I like it.
Under sweats. My best bet, and I went on my little rant about it, guys. The Cowboys laying 5 points against the Green Bay Packers. I mean, you're going up against that dude and Micah Parsons. They're only allowing 16.6 points per game, third in the NFL, 13 takeaways this season, eighth most in the NFL. And now their offense is going with Dak Prescott back in it, 73 points in the last 2 games since Dak has come back from injury. He's completing 77% of his passes, 457 passing yards, 3 touchdowns, and an interception over the last 2 games. I know it was against the Bears, and I know it was against the Lions, but guess what? The Packers are right there, neck and neck with the Bears for basically the dumpster of the NFC North at this point. So tell me I'm wrong, guys. Tell me I'm wrong. The Packers suck right now. Aaron Rodgers is down in the dumps, and I am laying points with the Cowboys.
Hey, Jerry, you like what I did? So during our little Green Bay Cowboy conversation, I talked you into putting the unit. I talked you into putting the unit on the Packers, and now LJ goes with her best bet, and it's on the board.
So, did you know that she was best betting the Cowboys before? I didn't know.
No, because I just put it in.
I did not, but it's beautiful. I love it.
I am not going to get suckered into a swag bet. I'm not getting sucked. Look at Tank's just
I
pulling
swear
his
we did not plan this
here.
at the beginning of the show. I swear Tank and I did not. There was no collusion. No collusion whatsoever.
I call bullshit. I call bullshit. I'm calling it. It smells, and it ain't my dog.
This is a great way to end Pickswise Playbook.
Wow.
We have week 10 upon us, guys. We will be talking about it all week long on Let's Bet It. Make sure to tune in. Thank you so much for tuning in to us today. Pickswise Playbook presented by Superbook Sports. Jared Smith, Tank Williams, Lauren Jabara. We'll see you guys next week.